Hey, Panaki, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason. Thank you. Thank you for having me. So
Yeah,
great to
excited
be
to have
here.
you on. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, all right. Hello, everybody. My name is Panaki Kathiari, and I do a lot of things. Right now, I'm the CEO of a digital communications agency called Local Wisdom. I also co-founded a product called Resource Hero. I volunteer at the International Association of Business Communicators. I started a podcast called Why Does It Feel So Wrong to Be Human at Work? So I have a funny way of getting myself into a lot of different things and figuring it out from there.
Very
But
cool.
essentially, as an entrepreneur, my agency essentially helps and communication teams at medium to large size businesses, essentially helping them manage, launch, and scale communications.
Very cool. And how long have you done the agency? And are you an accidental agency owner?
That's a good one. I like the accidental agency owner question. Yeah, we're about to celebrate 25 years next year. So that makes me feel both proud and old to say that. Um, and yeah, I think it was a little bit of a accidental agency owner as far as the origin story goes.
How did you get started?
Well, it was basically myself and my partners at the time. We met in college, so we went to Rutgers here in New Jersey. We were all computer science, and we graduated around like late '90s and early 2000s when that tech bubble burst. So we found ourselves out there with like no jobs really available. So we found ourselves back together again and saying like, all right, what do we do now? And I had noticed at the time, like the internet was becoming a big thing, and there were companies that did great design and companies that did great technology, but none that did both really well. And so that's what we started doing. We started just kind of like exploring our passions for both technology and design, bringing them together. And earlier on, we found our clients were communicators, both external and then later on internal communicators. And that's where we started to like niche in and hone in our skills of design and development for communication teams.
That's very cool. We were very similar because
Yeah.
we saw the same thing. We started in '99 and saw there was either design firms or programming firms, and there
Yep.
was none kind of doing it together well. And so that's when we started. So what did you charge your first client? What was the fee? What was the huge fee?
Dude, oh man. I think the first client was just like startup type stuff. And I think we were like trading for things and stuff like that. Like,
Mhm.
they bought like a camera and things like that. Whereas like I think it was a Sony Cyber Shot. I think that was the first fee, the Sony Cyber Shot. I don't remember the number. You
Uh-huh.
remember those digital cameras? That was a thing.
Yeah. I remember a long time ago we traded someone for like an Xbox.
Great. I'm glad we're not the only ones then in that way. I
that
do
that
remember. I do remember the first big deal, which felt really wild. But
what was it? $1,000?
no, the first big deal was five figures in like around 40,000, and that
Yeah.
was kind of like because that's when we kind of like started working more with more enterprises and companies like that. So it wasn't about trading things,
So
but
before the 40, what was the
yeah.
price before that? And what gave you the confidence to raise your prices to 40?
Oh yeah. The prices before that were it wasn't working actually, like because this was like it was just a bunch of really small startups, and working with small startups was difficult because they were not funded at the time, or they were like mom and pop shops. They were not
Mhm.
funded at the time, and it's like their money, right? So it was kind of one of those things where like whenever we were kind of talking about price or anything, it just kind of got to just almost started like nickel and diming and then scope creep and all of that stuff. And I'm like, this headache is not worth it. I just want to do cool stuff. Fortunately, we did end up like all kind of finding work and working at like so when we started the organization, like it was like college, we all had our day jobs. And so one by one, we had to we were doing like local wisdom all at night and whatnot. And we're
Working
all
at
fine.
Circuit City. Do you remember Circuit City?
Yeah, I remember Circuit Cities. Oh, man, like you're gonna make me take go way back with especially like this the similar stories that we have too,
Mhm,
and the whiz and all that stuff. But
mhm.
we all did get jobs at like good companies doing different things that we just didn't exactly enjoy. And so that kind of gave us the confidence to understand here's what it's like in enterprise, here's what it's like at corporations and companies, and here's what they're missing out there. So that gave us the confidence to like, and here's what other really large agencies are charging. So that gave us the confidence to go out there and say like this is a fair price for what you're
So
getting.
you had so you guys had to see what other like, what your
Mhm.
other large competitors were charging in order to give you guys the confidence to.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit like there was no we when we're starting out there was like no like we didn't have any mentors, we didn't have many even like other agency owners because we were probably like so far and few between. The internet just started. There was no social media, so I couldn't really even connect with Jason Swank at the
Yeah.
time to be like, "What are y'all doing?"
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, back then I just looked at everybody that was even trying to do an agency as competitors. I always laughed as
Yeah,
and I always say now I'm like, I would have never let my old self into my mastermind. Like
mhm,
there was no way. Like cuz
yeah,
I was just trying to seek and destroy everybody. I didn't realize that the power was in the community. Which
absolutely,
was a huge mistake looking back. Like because when after I sold the first agency, I remember competitors reaching out and I started collaborating with them and helping them out and connecting them. And I was like, man, I could have grown so much faster.
totally,
It was pretty funny. I was like, oh well, I guess
totally.
my failure will help in other people's wins.
That's I think that's what we got right now because I think that's what true entrepreneur is. It's just like falling gracefully at different and learning each time you fall, so that we could like because yeah, similarly, I am probably a much different person today. I wouldn't say properly. I definitely am a much different person today, and like I've learned so much through all of that.
Yeah. What's so after you guys got the $40,000 kind of bigger client,
Mhm.
how did you guys shift? Or like what was the mind
Uh-huh.
shift? Did you guys go, well, man, we can go after bigger clients? Did you realize being
Uh,
like, well, if we make more profit, we can hire the right people so we can get out of the day to day? Or how long did it take you to get out of the day to day?
too long because it took me a long time to get out of the day to day, actually, and it was because probably I enjoyed the day to day, and I grew up in the day to day. So um, I just yeah, I think the shift happened for us when just kind of after like hiring the right people and understanding like what we're trying to do and just realizing. So I guess we came up with this idea of like, all right, here we're doing everything and how do we kind of break down our jobs into smaller components to get the right people in place to take that on. Meanwhile we could either grow in this area that we haven't been doing and things like that. One of the earlier things that we did though to scale was creating more managed services, more like subscription based services, because we saw really early on that like we'd launch like say a website or an intranet or something like that, and then we're like trying to gear up for another sales pitch somewhere else, and we load up that website and we're trying to show it. I'm like, why doesn't it look as good as it did when we launched it? Because it's not looking as good. And then we looked into it, talked to people more, we realized that they just didn't have the time or even like the
The
acumen
knowledge?
to
Yeah,
the
the
knowledge
expertise. Yeah.
exactly to be
They
able to
screwed it up.
update it. Yeah, it screwed it up. So we're like, okay, you know what? Let's help you manage your web properties, subscription based thing. We called it curation at the time, like a museum curator would curate a museum, we would
Mhm.
curate your digital properties, making sure it's always maintained, looking well and fresh as content moves on and off the site. I think that was a big changer for us because, as project work would kind of go up and down, our subscriptions work would keep us in this kind of like steady place, allowing us for like really steady growth.
Yeah.
And then we kind of concentrated on larger organizations, kind of instead of trying to go after a lot of large organizations. Let's go after a few large organizations and set up a relationship where we do a lot of work with a few organizations.
Yeah.
So,
What's the percentage breakdown of reoccurring versus project based? Or what's the ratio that you like now?
oh, that's a good question. I wish I'd like had that like data really up in front. I think we have way more reoccurring. I think we're like 60 or 70% reoccurring. We're like 30 is like project based.
Yeah.
And I please, I'm saying this, on your podcast, don't quote me on that, but that's where I believe it is. A majority of so this is an important time for us because it's all renewals and they're all like 12-month contracts. So
Hmm.
this, I guess the last 3 months really kind of is foretelling of the next year for us.
Yeah. How long do your clients typically stay with you since they sign up for 12-month contracts?
Really long. I guess our longest running client has been over 20 years, so about 20 years now. Yeah.
Are
And
you still
then,
charging them the same amount?
yeah, roughly, yeah. I mean, they're probably, yeah, roughly the same amount. They're higher because,
Yeah.
the cost of things go up, and things change. So, but we're comfortable. They're comfortable. Like we have a trusted relationship, and it's like I was saying, it's not necessarily like we're working with one client at the company, but we're working for multiple clients at the company.
What do you treat as the way to keep your clients for a long time? Like
Mm,
if you could go back, in the very beginning and tell yourself like there's three non-negotiables that are going to determine if clients stick with us for a long time, what would they be?
yeah, I think we right, took some of those things and incorporated into our values. But one has been really about speaking with honesty and sincerity. So that means saying no if we don't think we can do it. That means saying no, I don't think that's a good idea. That means, but also saying it in a way uh, that you've already built trust. So it's not like a personal attack in any
Mhm.
different direction than is coming across with empathy. I think another way is always like finding ways to move forward because when we're working in digital and tech and stuff like that and people, there's always some kind of gotcha somewhere. And one of the things that we've kind of honed ourselves to do is when we hit one of those gotchas, like I think I've seen a lot of people's first reaction is start to like figure out, oh well, you should have done that, we should have done that, you should have done that. Our first reaction is like, all right, how do we fix this? And then we'll figure out how to not do it again and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
two things I think makes help us.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've always wanted to be that trusted advisor to people
Hmm.
and say, look, I will always challenge you and say, well, have you thought about it this way?
Hmm.
Or let's kind of rethink this part. Like I want them to come to me or our agency, our organization, and going, here's the problem. What do you think? What are some
Hmm.
solutions? Rather than the order taker.
Yeah.
In the very beginning, I think your relationship can, and it really starts from the first conversation, even when you're chatting with the
Yeah.
prospect. Like, are you the one asking all the questions or is the client?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a kind of those are the kind of things that we learn over time. I think one of the interesting things is for the longest time, we've been more of an execution company, right? So probably more in the order taking camp of it all. Of course, we'd still ask the right questions. Of course, we'd still like say, listen, there's something flawed in the way you're thinking. Let's rethink that in a way. But we basically saw a need where most of our clients were getting and having a lot of ideas, but no fast and flexible, easy way to execute on them.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Well, this has all been a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on the show. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the other agency leaders listening in?
Hmm. You know, not really, but maybe something that might be interesting because, and I'd love to get your take on it too, because I think we came up in the same time period-ish in the same type of like work, and really been thinking about this idea of how entrepreneur and creativity kind of come together, especially in the same person. Because it was found this kind of interesting struggle. Like I said earlier on, right? Like I just came in. You asked earlier on about like when did you stop being involved in the work, and I'm like, I just enjoy the work, so it's hard for me to stop. But I think that's a mentality of a creative as opposed to an entrepreneur who's thinking like the other question you ask is like, all right, like what's the end goal and how are we going to get there, and what's the
Mhm.
state. And it's funny that you asked both of those questions in this because I probably have struggled with both of those things, and how does that kind of fit in me with my own inner conflict. Maybe I'll ask you, does
Yeah.
that resonate with you, and how have
It,
you thought through
no-
that?
yeah. I mean, well, it kind of starts with the first, if you think about the first question, accidental agency owner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we knew how to do something cool. Someone offered us money and we were kind of off to the races. And then we had to figure out the business side of, right. Like my first client asked me to send him an invoice. I didn't even know what an invoice was. And like I always joke around. I'm like, I had to ask my dad because the internet wouldn't even tell me what an invoice was because there was not many search engines.
Yeah.
Google definitely wasn't around. So,
So
I think
wild.
we have to figure it all out. But like originally we started out as creators or just curious about this particular industry, whether it be curious about social media or curious about AI or technology or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can kind of get into it. But what I always tell everybody, because especially when anybody comes to work with us, I always tell them, I say, there's three goals I have for you. I want you to connect with other like-minded people. I want you to gain clarity from them and gain clarity of where you're wanting to go, but then also have the confidence to go there and to live with that decision. Now,
Mm-hmm.
like when you get that clarity of where you're wanting to go. So like going back to the one day I had clarity of the first agency, I was like, all right, I'm gonna I'm gonna do these 5 roles. I'm gonna transform from an owner to the CEO. And none of those roles had me still leading the design meeting, which I
Mm-hmm.
loved. Like I'm creative. And but I designed the business where it didn't need me for that,
Mm-hmm.
but I had passion for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still did it. Now I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
to do it, but I wanted to do it. And that's okay. Like
Yep.
another example, one of our mastermind members, Audra, we always tell the agencies that come into the community, I'm like, look, you got to get rid of marketing, you got to get rid of ops, and you got to get rid of sales for what you're doing in there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so they come
Mm-hmm.
in and we set up the right systems, we put the right people in the right place. But Audra loved the sales. So she was
Mm.
getting depressed.
Interesting.
And so we go, well, what about sales do you like? She liked the close. She liked adding color of what I like to say in the later meetings. I said, Audra, get back in, add color, be a
Yeah,
part of that. But no, you don't have to do it if you don't want to.
that's key.
So she got back in and she does the things that she wants to do. That's the thing. Like we create this business,
Yeah.
we want to create freedom. What's freedom? Picking and choose to do the things you want. It's not because Jason said, here are the 5 roles of an agency CEO. You can only do those. No, you still can do the ones you like. If
Yep.
you still want to design a landing page, go do it,
Yeah.
but you don't have
Exactly.
to.
That's brilliant because it's same thing that we've come up to it. It took a long time for me to like kind of come to grips with what I want to like let go and things like that. Cause I don't know. I like a lot of things. But like right now I get involved in work as a trigger point. I enjoy the work, but it's a trigger moment that if like Kanaki is involved in like client work for like 3 months or something like that, that's a trigger moment that we need to like start thinking about like really hiring. So I'm like a stopgap in a way
Yeah.
of a
Well,
person. So it's like, where can I fit in a way that works best for everyone?
yeah, we just got back from one of the events that we put on throughout the year, and I always ask people, and you may want to do this, and everyone listening, you should also do this with your direct reports. Go to them and saying, what do you suggest I start doing, continue doing, and stop doing? And they'll tell you.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, look, you know, Tanaka, you're a bottleneck for this. You don't need to be a part of this. And then you'll be like, wow, I never thought about that. That gives me more time over on this creative part.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, we want you more in that. Or, hey, if you like this and this gives you energy, do it.
Yeah.
But if your end goal, and this all goes back to the very beginning of clarity, we have to know the destination, where we're going. It could be to build a lifestyle business, perfect. Could be to build an incubator company and build other brands, great. Could be to sell it. Whatever that is, now you need to start taking actions in order to get there. So if your
Hmm.
business is to build it up and sell it one day, well, you better be able to get out of sales, or you better
Yep.
be able to get out of client work. Like, because like if I came to buy your agency, I'm going to devalue the hell out of it because
Hmm.
you think you might want to work for me after I buy you, but then
Hmm.
you'll be like, fuck, man, I've been doing this 25 years by myself. I don't want a boss,
Yeah.
right? Like that happens all the time.
No, it's true.
So,
We also have to be careful of, like, if you don't mind, I'll share a quick story of like how we've been too involved and kind of pull out. Like what you said, right, about asking people what we should stop doing and things like that. That's kind of one, granted, like, one, they feel comfortable enough to tell you, and two, they know themselves. Like, one example, a few years ago, I just hired a salesperson, and I decided to hire salespeople that coming from more of a product background than a services background for a specific reason, and that could be another episode. But in my process, I'm like, all right, we'll send the SOW out, and then we schedule a meeting to talk through the SOW, and then, you know, see if everything makes sense, and then sign and go. And then this new salesperson comes in, and I just, she's working on a deal, and I just see an email come through, and she just sends an email, like, hey, here's the SOW. As soon as you sign, we can get going. Let me know when you're ready. And I panicked for a second, thinking, oh my God, like, she didn't schedule that meeting. And what if they have questions? And I was about to like respond and reply all. And I said, but now, you know what? Just don't do that. Let's just see what happens. And then the next morning, oh, here's SOW signed. Let's go. And I was like, wow, I would have gotten in the way at that very moment if I did something. So it's just being really mindful of things like that. It's rough.
yeah. And I heard too of, as we figure out more and more, like if we go back in the, when we both started, we knew jack shit. Like we didn't know
Yeah.
anything. And you just figure out more and more over time. Like, immediately when someone on the team does something that I disagree with,
Mm,
I'm always going to be like, walk me through the process, because I'm going to assume the process is broken. And I'm going to say, well, walk me through the process that led you to this. And then then after that, it'd be like, well, if there's no process, be like, well, let's define a process and then follow it. Then if they don't follow that, then it's on the person, right? Like, then it's
hmm.
like, I'll always jump on the grenade first, but it's just fun to learn over the years. And like I
Hmm.
always laugh at people like, hey, I can't wait to, like, they'll come in and they'll join the community and they'll be like, all my all my things are going to be solved. I'll be like, we'll solve your biggest challenge, but that solution will create other problems that
Yeah.
like, if you're in the wrong business if you don't like solving problems,
True.
uh, right? Like there's just a
So
problem
true.
after problem that we need to solve. And that's why I'm like, look, just don't think you're going to solve this one problem and then things are going to, like, the sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
It just takes some time, and it's just like, all right, how do I put the right people in the place? Because I always joke with people, and I'm not joking when I say this. When they go, hey, how do I do something, I'm like, you're asking the wrong question. You should be like, who needs to figure this out, not
Wow. Yep.
you. Right?
Yep.
Like,
That's major. That last thing you said is major right now. That's kind of one of those, like, things that took me a lot of years to like figure out. It's not like, how do I do this, but who's the right person, and how could I equip them in a way to get it done? And
yeah.
yeah,
So, well,
fantastic.
yeah. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your experience. We'll have to get you back on, and we'll talk about the hiring the salespeople. I think that'd be interesting. And for everyone listening, if you guys do want to be a part of really an agency owner community, very small knit community that really is transparent. They're no egos. They love sharing their wins. They love sharing their failures so other people don't have to go through that painstaking thing. I'd love to invite all of you to click on the little scale button on the Agency Mastery website, and let's have a conversation and
Mhm.
see how we can help you out, see if you're right for the community or not. And until next time, have a swank day. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you want more content like this, make sure you click on the link on the screen or check out your most popular podcast platform where the full episode is there. And until next time, have a swank day. What are you doing? Go check it out. Click on the link. I'll see you soon.